Hello, I'm Grandpa Jim. Welcome to my website. Today I want to tell the story of the brother and sister. They had a very wealthy father and their mother died. And so he met a lady that was very lovely and decided he would marry her and we would have a stepmother. Well, within a short time, he died. It ended out that she was a witch, and she inherited everything that he had. And then she made the brother and sister do all of the work around the house. She had a daughter that was very ugly, and with only one eye, and that daughter never had to do anything. And she would whip both of the children with a stick if they didn't do exactly as she told them what to do and how to do it, if they didn't do it fast enough. And she barely gave them anything to eat, just crumbs off the table. So one morning, the brother said to his sister, "We're going to die from starvation if we stay here. And besides, we keep getting hit with the stick. We have to go out into the world ourselves and start a new life." And so all day long, they walked and they walked until in the evening, as it was starting to get dark, they came to a large forest. And they saw a tree with lots of leaves underneath it. And so they decided, even though they were hungry and tired, they had to go to sleep. So they decided to lay down on those leaves and they slept for the whole night. But unknown to them, the stepmother was a witch, and she knew exactly where they were. She had followed them in her mind. And seeing where they were, she was angry because she wouldn't have free labor anymore. They weren't doing the housework anymore for her. They deserved to be punished. And so she made a magic spell on all of the water in the forest. The next morning when they woke up, the brother was feeling very, very thirsty. And he said, "Sister, as soon as we find some water, I've got to have a drink." And so they walked for a little while and they came to a pond. And as they came to a pond and he prepared to drink, the pond said, "Whoever drinks of me will become a lion. Whoever drinks of me will become a lion." And, "Oh, brother, don't drink here. You'll become a lion and then you'll tear me to shreds." So the brother didn't drink there, but he said, "I have to drink the next place we come to." And so the next place they came to where there was some water, he was getting ready to drink when the water said, "Whoever drinks of me will become a wolf. Whoever drinks of me will become a wolf." "Oh, brother, don't drink the water here. You'll become a wolf and then you'll eat me." And so the brother said, "Okay, but the next time we come to water, I have to have some water." And so they walked further and further into the forest and came to another pond. And as she came up to the pond said to her, "Whoever drinks of me will become a deer. Whoever drinks of me will be a deer." But it was too late. He had already put his mouth down to the water and he turned into a deer. And she cried, "Oh, my brother's a deer." Oh, she was so very unhappy. And she took off the golden belt that her father had given her, and she put it around the neck of the deer to act as a collar. And then she took some of the tall weeds that were growing along the water, and she wove them together, braiding them and weaving them together to make a leash. And then she attached the leash to the collar for the deer so the deer wouldn't run away. And so they walked and they walked, and they finally left the forest. But shortly after leaving the forest, they saw a house. So she peeked in the windows, and nobody was there. So she decided to check it out, and she went inside, and she saw that nobody was living there. And so she said to her brother, "We're going to stay here and make this our home." And so she left the deer in the house, and she went out into the forest, and she collected berries and mushrooms and roots and various things to eat, as well as she brought back a bundle of things for her brother to eat. And so they spent the night there. Well, one night went into the next night, until the next night, and they ended up being there for 5 years, with her always going out and collecting the foods. And of course, by then she knew the deer wasn't going to run away, and the deer was able to run around the forest and eat what deers like to eat, and got to know the forest quite well. Well, by then, they had both pretty much grown up. She was 16 or 17 years old, and he was a little bit younger. And they heard trumpets blowing. What had happened was the king was having a hunt in the forest, and they could hear the men yelling and having fun, yelling back and forth. They could hear the dogs barking, and her brothers, "I want to go. I want to see this. It's going to be fun. Let me out the door." And she, "No, no, 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 no. They will catch you. And no, no, no. I have to go. This is going to be fun. Don't let me lose my fun." So finally she said, "Okay." And she opened the door for him, and he ran out. He ran out and watched them for a while, but then they saw him. And they started the chase. And the king saw the golden collar on his neck. And so they chased and they chased, and all day long they chased that deer. But of course the deer knew all of the forest. And so he ran this way and he ran that way, and they chased this way, and he took them around in circles. And just when they thought they were getting closer, he hid in another place where they just went by him. He had a good, wonderful time. And finally, as it was starting to get dark, he decided, well, I guess it's time to go home. Well, he was told when he left that in order to get back in, he had to knock on the door and say, "Sister, let me in." So he came running around to the house. He knocked on the door and said, "Sister, let me in." And the door opened and he went in. But little was he aware of, one of the hunters had followed him quietly and saw all that took place. And so that hunter went back and told the king what he had seen. The king says, "Well, looks like we're going to have a hunt again tomorrow." And so there they were tomorrow, with the dogs barking, the trumpets blowing, and the men yelling and having a great time. And the brother said, "Oh, sister, I've got to go out. I've got to go out." "No, no, no. They'll catch you and they'll kill you, and that'll leave me all by myself. No, you can't go out." But he said, "If I don't go out, I think I'll just die here." Well, she finally gave in and let him go out. And so he went out and went running around, and they saw him, and the chase started. But this time, the king said, "Chase him all day long, but no one is to hurt that deer." And so they chased and they chased, and he led him this way and he led him that way. And shortly before it was getting dark, the king had the hunter show him where the house was. So the king went up to the door and knocked on the door and said, "Sister, let me in." And so she opened the door, and there was the king with his royal clothes and his crown, and she was afraid. And he said, "Don't be afraid. Why, I'm amazed. You're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. What are you doing living out here in the wilderness?" And so he spoke so nicely, she wasn't afraid anymore. And she told her story of what had happened. And he said, "Well, why don't you come and live in my castle?" And she said, "Well, that would be wonderful, but my friend, the deer, that's really my brother, and I can't leave him." And he said, "He can come into the castle, he'll be well taken care of, and we'll give him all the food he needs. Not a problem." So she said, "Great, let's go." And so everybody headed off back to the castle. They lived there for a while, and during the time, the king and her got to be very good friends, and finally said, "Let's get married." And she, "Okay, let's do that." So they got married. After a couple of years, she ended up finding out that she was about to have a baby. And so this was news that was spread kind of throughout the country, and the witch heard about it. And she thought, "Oh, I thought the beasts must have torn her to shreds. And I thought surely hunters had killed that deer by now. But look at this situation. Here she is married to the king and about to have a baby." And her ugly daughter said, "It should have been me that was marrying the king." And she said, "Don't worry, we're going to fix things for you." So just about as the queen was about to give birth, the witch disguised herself and she went to the castle as a doctor, specializing in helping women give births. And so she became the official person to help the queen give birth. And so she and her daughter fixed a really burning hot tub of water, boiling, almost boiling. And after she'd helped her have the baby, she said, "Now the best thing for you is you need to take a good hot bath, because you've been under extreme stress, and the bath will help clear out all the different problems that you're having, and you will be instantly so much better." And so the weak queen, because she was weak from having given birth to the baby, was helped by the camouflaged or disguised witch and her daughter, and taken over to the hot tub. And she felt the hot water and said, "Oh no, that's too hot for me." And she said, "No, it's not too hot. It feels hot because you just gave birth. And it's really, yes, it's hot, but it's hot at just the right amount." And they forced her to get into the boiling hot water. And in the shortest time, she died from the heat of that hot water. It basically was cooking her. Well, with her having died, they then took her over to a window, and they threw her out a window into a creek that was below. And in the creek, the water washed her downstream. That night, she had her daughter climb into the king's bed and said, "Make sure you have the covers covering your face, so just a little bit of you is sticking out." So she did that. She climbed into bed, and the king, not knowing it wasn't his wife, climbed into bed, and then in the middle of the night, what appeared to be a ghost came. And the ghost looked like the real queen. and the ghost came and nursed the baby. And after nursing the baby, went over and gave a hug to her brother, the deer. Well, that was very scaring for the maid that was there the whole time. She saw this and didn't know what to think. The next night, as soon as the ghost came again, she went over the nurse went over into the king's bedroom and woke him up and told him what was happening. And so he quietly went and entered the room, and he saw the ghost holding the baby, loving the baby, and allowing the baby to obtain milk from her breasts. And then she carefully and gently wrapped the baby in the clothing, in the blankets. And then she went over and hugged her brother and pet him for a little bit. And the king said, "You are my wife." And immediately upon recognizing her as his wife, she was immediately changed back into being the real person she was. The magic spell that had been passed and all of the stuff that from the witch had been broken, and she came back to life. And she told the king what had happened. And so the king had the daughter and the old woman, the witch, taken into the prison. The next day there was a trial, and they were condemned to death. The daughter was condemned to be taken out into the woods and left by herself. And whatever happened to her is the equivalent of what might have happened to the children when they were out in the woods. And the witch was condemned to die at the stake, because the only way to kill the powers of a witch is they have to be burned at the stake, and then the powers are broken and gone forever. I hope you liked my story, and I hope that you'll give me a like, and I hope that you'll also share it with others. And feel free to give me a comment. I would appreciate that. Enjoy your day.